Leadership Live. I am Monica, leadership coach, and this is a series where we dive deep into the mindset of powerful leadership to create the impact you want and get to the goals that you have. So, we are talking about how to improve your executive presence, and this is part three in the series. In the first one, I discussed how it's a psychological construct, and that's what exactly blocks us from having that presence. Uh, Last Friday, I talked about our survival program, how we are conditioned in a certain way by society, by peers, by culture, or from the way we are brought up, and some genetic disposition. I gave an example of how I make the same mistake repeatedly by being in a certain group. So I push myself hard. I set a really high goal and then work hard, burn out a little bit, feel guilty that I didn't do much work during a period of time, and then push myself even harder. So in high school, I had a goal of getting into a engineering college. And then when I was in that college, I worked really hard to get into an MBA college. And then when in my master's in grad school, I worked really hard to get into FAANG companies. Then I became a coach, and it's the same pattern again. I worked really hard to fill my practice. So you see, though the circumstances change, though the goal itself changes, the pattern is the same. I cycle through setting a high goal for myself, burning out, then pushing myself harder again. It's just the same life repeating again and again. Externally, everything changes, but internally, the experience is same. It's like talk about hamster in a wheel, right? It's we are just in that loop all the time. So today I'll talk about how to actually get out of this survival programming, or how to get off certain loops that don't serve you anymore. You might look back at your life, look back to um, look back at like 5 year and see how you're having the same experience. So how do we live life intentionally, have a career that is intentional, and not have these insecurities, self-doubt, imposter syndrome um, drive our goals and also our leadership. Let's dive in. So I want you to know that to improve your leadership from the default way, the reactive way, if you will, you need to practice a. So what happens is first we generate some awareness of what's going on, and then we immediately try to fix it. So let's talk about how that actually derails you. So there are three steps that I recommend in order of reflection to get out of these loops that we set ourselves in. So the first one is to generate a ton of awareness about your coping mechanisms. Coping mechanisms are strategies that we devise ourselves to um, handle the discomfort that we are facing. So we all have different ways we cope, from events like really hard feedback or an uncertain decision that we need to make, or a hard conversation that we need to have. And just notice when you need to make a really big decision, does it happen your house gets like ultra clean, or You get onto your phone and you are in this endless loop of scrolling. Or do you cope by uh, people get to it's not just about like addictions like alcohol, smoking, or drugs, but um, these coping mechanisms can be very fancy and very innocent as well. um, how this might show up in your workplace is like, I need more data, I need to research more, we need more processes, let's make a document about that, let's plan more. So no, it's these are not very evident that these are coping mechanisms, but all of them prevent us from stepping our toes into that discomfort. We keep going back to what is comfortable for us. So for me, what's comfortable is working hard. So even before somebody comes and tells me that, hey, this is not going well, maybe we should change it, I take that feedback, interpret it like the instant way my mind reacts is to work hard and fix it, put more effort. Just like go on that hamster wheel, right? Run faster. Um, Figure out a solution very quickly. So some of these patterns for many people are like, let's um, let's get something really really perfect before we make the actual decision. Let's try all the ways that um, we can avoid the conversation, and we'll go talk to this person, that person, but not to the actual person that we are afraid that this might cause a conflict. So it's not just like conflict avoidance also. These coping mechanisms can look like meditating for 2 hours, journaling a lot, watching TV. So the thing is, all of these are fear driven. Fear wants us to keep us safe, secure, and in the same place that we were, and handle the uncertainty that's in front of us. So that is how we end up in the same place again and again. I was recently having a conversation with my coach, and he asked a very innocent, he asked a very simple question. I was about to say innocent. No, not that's not the right word. So I asked him something about. Um, I noticed that I work really hard and I don't need to. How do I get this? And then he came back and asked me, "Well, if a client came to you and asked this question, how would you help them?" And uh, my brain started working. How would I help a client? How would I help a client? Well, and then I had no answer in that moment. And then my coach reflected back to me and said, "You see how you're working so hard? It's a simple question I asked. You have been doing this for 2 years now. You have coached so many people, and I'm pretty sure you coached people through this. So what's happening?" So then it struck me that I'm trying to get the right answer out. Like I need to know this already. So it was like there are many options, right? How do you get out of you brainstorm many options, like different options with them, or you ask certain questions. So I have the answers, but in that moment, my brain is trying to get something right, something perfect. So, and that is a coping mechanism. You will. It's very fascinating how our fear kind of devises these strategies, right? I sit down to write, and because I'm afraid to hit publish, I keep editing and rewriting the same thing again and again. And that is a coping mechanism. So it's not just procrastination, it's also procrastination by pretending to take action that results in a certain loss of power, a loss of opportunities, loss of experiments. So, okay, now when you look at yourself and you list down, like, okay, these are the ways I cope from uncertainty, discomfort, then what happens? You generate a ton of awareness, and then self judgment hits you, like hits you in the face. Oh my God, I am doing all of this stuff. I I don't know. I just might be I'm just not good. That's what happens to me. I need to fix this. So it's the same way that ego keeps us like this, right here. We use everything that we understand to again keep us in the same story that we have. So the awareness is not just about understanding your coping mechanisms, it's also understanding how you're perpetuating the coping mechanisms by telling yourself a certain story in your head. Keep us in the same story. So that's when our self judgment, self doubt, imposter syndrome, all of these things are actually defenses against creating certain change. That might be a little hard hitting, but it's true. For me, I have to keep asking myself, like, if I'm doubting myself, what is in it for me that I doubt myself? There is certainly a reward. And usually it comes down to I don't want to face a certain emotion or I don't want to face uncertainty. So that's a gotcha that you need to keep in mind while you're doing this kind of reflection. The purpose of this reflection is to understand the core story that drives your narrative, drives your programming, drives your algorithm. These are all the same things that I'm talking about, and we try to generate awareness of how we are doing that in the moment. As in, when you're sitting writing down that proposal, what's happening that is blocking what are the coping mechanisms that you're resorting to? Do you, like, when you feel that you don't know the next idea how to present it, do you go check your phone? Do you just shut down your computer and go watch something on TV? I have done that. I keep doing that sometimes, and these things become habits over time. So it's about understanding strategies, the mechanisms that we discuss, and the story beneath. Now, you can do this stuff on your own. And then the second step is to forgive yourself for what. It's not like apologizing. It's more like getting to a state that whatever happened till now, however I got here, it had to happen so that I could be here, so that I could learn all of these things. I had to go through these cycles of working hard, burning, working hard again to understand that that's not the experience I want for the rest of my life. There was no other way I could have operated. There was no other way. Um, uh, there was no other data. There was no other. I'm repeating myself at this point, like, way of looking at the world. I just had no. Um, and that is perfectly. One of my teachers says that our mind operates very like linearly in terms of if when we generate awareness of something or whatever we might take, we immediately say this is good, this is bad, but that's not how reality is. When we understand that an event is not just good bad, there are many quantums. You must have heard of the butterfly effect, right? So let's say you didn't send it today and you're beating yourself up about it. Like, I did that bad thing. I need to not do that. I need to, learn to do this. I need to just send that email. Whatever narrative might be going on in your head, understand that there are many quantums that are dependent on that particular event of you not sending that email. Of course, it's not a way to skip responsibility. You take responsibility for what is happening, but also whatever is happening is perfectly fine. It's okay. We always fall and then rise up. So, and during that process, we do it with awareness. So, we are talking about how to forgive yourself for being the way you are. How all your strategies, all your coping mechanisms, all the ways you deflect responsibility, all the ways you doubt yourself, all the ways you tell yourself that you are lacking somehow, all the ways you tell yourself that you're not better than other people, or you're not right, you're not good, you're A, C, whatever. Tell your this forgiveness practice is very useful. All the ways when you're trying to change from old to new, what happens is before you can fully become the new, uh, adapt the new way of being, there will be many times you will fall back to the frequency will be less, but unless you have a forgiveness practice, it becomes a way of doing the same thing again, reinforcing the same loop and story again. So I was just listening to um, and he also has this live. One of the things that came up was that let's say you are in a car and you're going somewhere. You after traveling a while, you realize that you went on the wrong path. What do you do? Is it that you get out of the car and beat yourself with a stick, or you just open a map, try to see where you want to go? So this is really important as as a person who dealt with so much of self doubt and low confidence. And um, okay, let me catch a pause and see where we are going. Okay, one of the things is it's beneficial to work with a coach when you're in this process, because when you're thick in it, you don't know what you're doing. So it's like it's a our blind spots um, are evasive for the same reason. It's like tasting your own teeth, tasting your own tongue or biting your own. We don't know that we are in the story when we are actually executing it. It doesn't occur to us that way. So this is the second thing. Reach a state where you get really like complete that it couldn't have gone any other way. This is how it was supposed to go, so that I can learn. I could have I made mistakes. I can learn and I can go a different path. So for me, when I get into this tendency of working really hard, putting a lot of effort, pushing myself, and burning out, I just go back and see how I can, um, forgive myself and not beat myself up about it. Often the voice is, "You should have known better. I should have reached there already. You've done so much work on this. What's wrong with you?" Like that's like the voice. So then, the third step is practicing a different way of being. Now, most of us get this wrong, right? We see that we are all self-reflective and aware to some extent. When we see that, okay, we are doing something wrong here, um, the mistake we try to make is try to fix that right away, because we don't like to be flawed. We just want to be these perfect people that everybody acknowledges and accepts. But that's like more of the same. That won't work because it will keep you there. This is why positive affirmations fall flat, and that's why coaches, um, keep pointing that okay, you're doing that same thing again. So when you try to go from the old to new, it's important that you go in this order. That you understand, generate some self awareness, have a forgiveness practice, get to a complete place what has happened, what's happening. Then, in the moment, you try to practice a different way of being. So, how I am doing that is that when I see that I am working too hard on something, trying to figure out the right way to do it, I take a pause and I try to connect back to what is who do I want to be? Do I want to be a person who works hard, or do I want to have fun? For me, I want to be playing with this stuff, even if it is, even if I know that what I write, many people are going to see, and that weighs heavy on me. I want to get into a mode of experiment and playfulness. So right now, as I am doing this live, like as I'm speaking, my mind in the background kind of goes into self judgment. Okay, you're stammering too much. You are talking. You're going way off topic. Yes, I am doing some of those things, but then this is also me having fun and experimenting with stuff. Now, how is this related to executive presence? If you're not, if you are conflict avoidant, if you're not used to talking to people um, in a certain way, as in you come across too strong, you must have gotten feedback like this, you come across too across pushy, you're not assertive enough, you are you make decisions independently without asking other people, these kind of feedback, right? And when what happens when people get this feedback, they try to suddenly correct themselves to the opposite way, and that's more of the same if you see, because when you go the opposite way, these kind of, you are just holding back, you're like having patience with yourself, and suddenly one day what happens is this is not working, and you just go back to the default pattern. So um, your presence improves when you understand, when you're self-aware of what is happening in the moment, and then changing that to and practicing a new way of doing something in that moment. So something like, imagine you are in a meeting with all these executives and you're trying to make a point, and suddenly you remember, like, or you notice that, okay, I'm doing that old thing where I'm repeating the same point again, or I'm doing that thing where I'm doubting myself that what I'm saying is not valuable. And if somebody asks you that details, it just reinforces that doubt. So at that moment, remember the true way who you want to be and apply that in the moment. At first, it will be writing with your left hand. And then slowly you gain confidence and slowly you uh, becomes that the new way is more 80-90% of who you are, and the old way keeps showing up and it will slowly fall away. So if you notice, um, when people skip these steps, they uh, revert back to the old patterns that they have, the old patterns that come from our programming. This is why a lot of diets don't work. This is why when you try to work out in the gym, try to lose weight, uh, it simply doesn't work because we it's not just a physical game, it's a mental game. Like, what's the story underneath? How are you coping from that? And are you uh, getting to a place of completion and forgiveness? These determine whether you will be successful at the new practice that you're taking up. And when you're trying to improve your executive presence, whatever it is that is stopping you, again, apply these three steps. What's the story underneath? Then, am I forgiving myself for that story? Am I getting complete? This is how it was till now, and that is okay. And then try to, in the moment, try to practice. Now, all of this sounds a little bit vague, and that's why I'm trying to give so many examples, but also it's hard to do. And that is why I take the help of my coach to have this reflected back to me. When he keeps telling me, "Okay, you're doing that thing right now," that's when it becomes very powerful. Oh, I didn't realize. Like when you have the self awareness, and it remains like an intellectual understanding, that and we go and say, okay, I am a personality um, who is an introvert, who doubts themselves or who is shy, and I am a person who doesn't take decisive action, that we go that and I'm trying to change. See, that's like an intellectual understanding, and that's why we stay there. Though we try so hard, we try to like apply all these tactics and strategies, we are still at the same place. It doesn't get embodied. And when we have somebody who's holding that possibility for us, who keeps telling us that, okay, this is what is happening, and then we are able to see that like right in front of our eyes, that's when change starts to happen. That's when we get rewired into a way. So I'm trying to think of a reflection here. So think about all of this, and for this week, look at your coping mechanisms. What do you do to cope from uncertainty, discomfort, or change? What do you do to not meet reality as it is? What do you do to try to change others from your fear and from your coping mechanisms? What do you try to do, or how do you set your goals from fear? And um, this is going to start that seed of implementing the feedback that you get. This is going to start having you shift those self doubting thoughts, the critical thoughts, or the aggressive energy, or whatever it is that you have that you're trying to change, and have you open up space for people to talk to you and open up to you, and that's what will make the difference. That's what will have people trust you and buy your vision of your whatever you're trying to do in your leadership. So try this out for this week, and if you have any questions, reach out to me. And of course, if you want help through all of this process, again, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll help you out and see what we can do to cause some change and not have it looping in this type of patterns. That's all I have for today. And hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you again next week, where we will talk about, we'll take what we talked about today, and we'll talk about hard conversations and making difficult decisions, because those are the things, your swiftness to do those is what will set your leadership apart from everybody else, and have you take risks and have you create lots of impact that you want. So, all right, thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you have any questions, reach out. And if you also have feedback about this live, if you have something that resonated strongly with you, I would love to hear that. It will have my survival programming feel good and iterate on whatever I'm doing. Thank you so much. Bye bye.